Good evening. It's 8 o'clock. The top headlines this Friday night. Swords, stones and lathis in clashes at the Singhu protest sites at the Delhi-Haryana border. Outside crowds barge in at the farmers' protest sites at Singhu. They shout inflammatory slogans, Desh ke gaddaron ko goli maro. The Punjab Chief Minister reacts saying this is what Pakistan wants as clashes erupt between crowds and farmers. Thousands at a Kisan Mahapanchayat in Western Uttar Pradesh in the hometown of farmer union leader Rakesh Tikayat, whose tears led to an outpouring of support as more farmers came to the Delhi-UP border where he is protesting. Uttar Pradesh restores water and power at these farmers' protest sites after the huge entry of farmers in support of Tikayat. The President, in his address to Parliament today, backs farmers' laws amid a boycott by 19 opposition parties. Mr. Rahul Gandhi says the laws need to be thrown in the waste paper basket. The Prime Minister says this budget is part of 4 to 5 mini budgets, which were all the economic packages that were announced during the pandemic. Meanwhile, the Economic Survey predicts an 11% growth next year. The Chief Economic Advisor says the economy is making a V-shaped recovery like the Indian cricket team. An ID blast outside the Israel embassy in Delhi. No one is injured, but windscreens of cars are shattered. A high alert at airports and government buildings across Delhi. Two BJP states filed FIRs against journalists and a Congress MP as sedition charges now there against senior journalists. The Editors Guild and journalist organizations protest the attack on media. No defense is needed for jokes. Comedian Kunal Kamra's replied to a contempt petition in the Supreme Court. He says we're witnessing assault on freedom of speech and says that he will not apologize, though his tweets do not mean any contempt of court. The Supreme Court adjourns the case for 2 weeks. And the best of the meeting retreat ceremony. Our lead story tonight is the worry over the confrontations that are increasingly building up between farmers and crowds that are emerging at various protest sites and police. Today, we saw swords, stones, lathis at the Singhu border, the Delhi-Haryana border, where farmers have been protesting for over 2 months as crowds barged in. In Ghazipur, that's the Delhi-UP border, we saw huge crowds of more farmers coming in to actually support farmer leader Rakesh Tikayat. But the worry now is about the kind of tension building up and the communal slogans being shouted and the tension between protesters and police also building up and people being injured and fear that there may be violence. Our NDTV reporters were there today between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock at the Singhu border where things went out of control as clashes erupted.
A group of 200 men claiming to be locals have arrived here at the Singhu border here, demanding the farmers to vacate the protest site here. They are saying that the farmers insulted the national flag on January 26, and that's why they are saying that the farmers who are protesting here for the last 63 days should vacate this particular protest site. They are saying that because of this protest for the last 63 days, they have been inconvenienced to a lot, and that's why they are forcing, they are demanding that the farmers should vacate this protest site.
जबरदस्त नारेबाजी चल रही है। देश के गद्दारों को गोली मारने के बाद तमाम ये नारे लगाए जा रहे हैं और आप देखेंगे यहाँ पर सबसे बड़ा सवाल यही है कि इतने आगे तक ये लोग कैसे आ गए जब दिल्ली पुलिस के जो टैंकर्स हैं उनको रोका गया है। और आप देखेंगे यहाँ पर जो एक तरफ सिख हैं और एक तरफ अपने आप को लोकल्स कहने वाले लोग हैं, तो यहाँ पर दिल्ली पुलिस ने उनको रोका है। हम यहाँ से आके तस्वीरें आपको दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। और यहाँ पर पुलिस ने आंसू गैस के गोले भी चलाए हैं। किसानों और जो लोकल्स के बीच ये जो चल रहा था वो उनको जो है अलग हटाने के लिए, तितर-बितर करने के लिए आंसू गैस के गोले यहाँ पर छोड़े जा रहे हैं। यहाँ पर एक तंबू था जिसको तोड़ दिया गया है और जूम करके दिखाएंगे, वहां वॉशिंग मशीन्स लगी थी, उनको भी जो है तोड़ लिया गया है, यहाँ पर तोड़ दिया गया है। और दोनों तरफ जहां पर पुलिस वाले आपको नजर आ रहे हैं वहां तक पहुंच गए थे। जो लोकल्स अपने आप को बता रहे हैं, तमाम नारेबाजी हो रही थी और दोनों तरफ से यहाँ से जब तंबू तोड़ने शुरू किए गए तो उधर किसानों की तरफ से भी पत्थरबाजी शुरू हो गई और दोनों तरफ से जबरदस्त पत्थरबाजी हुई। पुलिस ने उसके बाद फिर लगभग तकरीबन 30 से 35 टीयर गैस शेल किए, उसके बाद जाके कहीं स्थिति नियंत्रण में आई है। तमाम लोगों को लगभग 2 किलोमीटर दूर रोक लिया जाता है। यहाँ तक कैसे उनको आने दिया गया, हम लोग लगातार सुबह से कह रहे हैं कि यहाँ पर कथित तौर पर जो अपने आप को लोकल्स कह रहे हैं उनको आने दिया जा रहा है। ये लोकल्स हैं जो पत्थरबाजी कर रहे हैं और पुलिस देखिए वहां पर खड़ी हुई है।
Violence at the Delhi-Haryana Singhu border as farmers clashed with so-called locals. This despite a major presence of security forces. In fact, all vehicles were stopped at least 2 kilometers ahead of the protest site. Even water tankers weren't allowed. Despite Satyendra Jain, minister in the Delhi government, arguing with the police.
पुलिस ने वाटर टैंकर्स को इस बैरिकेड से पहले रोक लिया है और कह रहे हैं कि किसानों को पीने का पानी नहीं मिलेगा और पीने का पानी नहीं मिलेगा तभी वो त्रस्त होकर यहाँ से जाएंगे। ये इस तरह के ह्यूमन राइट्स का वायलेशन कभी सुनने में नहीं आया।
But around 1 p.m. when a group of 200 people claiming to be locals managed to cross 2 lines of barricades and get close to the farmers, police stood as mute spectators. Some of the slogans highly provocative.
A group of 200 men claiming to be locals have arrived here at the Singhu border here, demanding the farmers to vacate the protest site here. What is the important question that needs to be raised here? In all those people who are supposed to enter that barricade that is 1 kilometer from here should show their ID card. Only after that they are allowed inside. How did this group of around 200 people enter this point, come to this point? That's something the Delhi police needs to answer.
As the group neared the tents and started uprooting it, violence with the farmers erupted. The police initially stood by. The forces finally intervened as the violence spiraled, used tear gas and lathi charge. One farmer armed with a sword tried to charge at the counter-protesters. A police official intervened and was injured. The man with the sword was nabbed and thrashed by the police. Even the so-called locals seemed to join in. In the melee, a masked man can be seen grabbing a lathi from a policeman and attacking the farmers. Singhu is now tense but calm.
But the question remains, how did a large group get so close to the farmers for the second day in a row despite police presence? With camera person Manoj Thakur, this is Arvind Gunasekar from Singhu border for NDTV.
And as Arvind and Saurav have been pointing out, when these people have been allowed in, the tension erupts and the violence erupts. So look at these visuals. So stones were thrown into this man's tent. This man came out with a sword and an SHO actually got caught in between the sword used on the SHO, who's now his left arm. He's got severe cuts. That sword there, as the clashes erupted there, you can see between this farmer and this man from this crowd, the police have tried to intervene and an SHO has got severely injured because of that. So it's tragic to see those severe cuts on the SHO's arm. And then after that happened, we saw the man who had the sword was also severely beaten by police. And also a man emerges in that white t-shirt there. You can see he's clearly not part of the police. And there he is, the police gathered around, and that man there in this white t-shirt, all using lathis and beating that man there on the ground, who apparently is part of the protesters. So as you can see, violence just goes out of control in these mob-like situations. And worry being expressed now by senior political leaders as well, seeing these clashes at Singhu. The Punjab Chief Minister has condemned the violence at Singhu and has said that this is exactly what Pakistan wants. He pointed out the fact that also so many of these farmers, people from farmers' families are in the armed forces, and this is not what they should see. The Akali Dals also have asked that does the government want communal clashes, and have asked Akali Dal cadre to reach all three of the farmers' protest sites.
My outlook is very clear that this is completely something that no Indian can be proud of. The Red Fort is a symbol of our independence. This was the capital of the Mughals, it was the capital of the British, and we took that, our own freedom fighters led by Gandhiji. Eventually, the Indian flag was raised there on the 17th of August in 1947. And it was always the symbol of Indian democracy. And it was a very sad day when I saw this happening.
Well, also now we saw what happened yesterday. The tension was at the Delhi-UP border at Ghazipur. But after the tears of farmer leader Rakesh Tiwari, look at these huge crowds which have gathered at a Kisan Panchayat in Western Uttar Pradesh. They came after this video went viral of him breaking down. So thousands of farmers saying that they will go to Ghazipur now in his support, and many farmers arriving there today as well.
After this emotive appeal by Bharatiya Kisan Union leader Rakesh Tiwari, thousands of farmers gathered at Western UP Mahapanchayat at his hometown Muzaffarnagar, called by his brother, all resolved to head to Delhi in support of the agitation at the Delhi-UP border at Ghazipur. More farmers streamed in today at the site after their tough stand last night with eviction orders issued. Today, UP officials had to restore water and power here and stand by as opposition politicians Manish Sisodia from AAP and Jayant Chaudhary of the Rashtriya Lok Dal also arrived to extend support.
किसान डट के खड़े हैं और उनकी हिम्मत को दाद देनी होगी। बहुत लंबी लड़ाई उन्होंने लड़ी है और अभी भी धैर्य के साथ बैठे हैं, तो हमें भी धैर्य रखना पड़ेगा। पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज को भी उनका साथ देना होगा।
अब हमने यहाँ पर पानी लगवा दिए हैं, टॉयलेट्स वगैरह की व्यवस्था करवा दी है, तो किसानों को अगर ज़रूरत पड़े तो वो यूज़ कर सकते हैं। दिल्ली सरकार की ओर से पूरा इंतज़ाम है। और मैं यहाँ बस यही देखने आया था, इसी का निरीक्षण करने आया था।
The protest of farmers at the Ghazipur border, which started to lose steam after the incidents of 26th of January, has gotten re-energized after an emotive appeal of their leader, and the protesting farmer who was starting to get demoralized have started to rally behind their leader, stating that they are not going to move an inch back till the time the farm laws are not repealed. With camera person Sushil Rathi, I'm Akshay Dongre for NDTV.
Meanwhile, Parliament began today with the traditional President's address, but this time with 19 opposition parties boycotting over the farm laws. The President, however, said in his speech that the farm laws had been passed after deliberation with everybody, and he also stressed that these farm laws were actually to the benefit of farmers. Opposition parties, however, with a very different view.
The President for the first time addressing a central hall with only a few MPs in attendance. Social distancing norms meant many were in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha, and 19 opposition parties boycotted the address, the proceedings in solidarity with the protesting farmers. The President said the farm reforms had been passed after much discussions.
व्यापक विमर्श के बाद संसद ने 7 महीने पूर्व 3 महत्वपूर्ण कृषि सुधार, कृषक उपज व्यापार और कृषक संवर्धन और सरलीकरण विधेयक, कृषि सशक्तिकरण और संरक्षण, कीमत आश्वासन और कृषि सेवा करार विधेयक और आवश्यक वस्तु संशोधन विधेयक पारित किए हैं। इन कृषि सुधारों का सबसे बड़ा लाभ भी 10 करोड़ से अधिक छोटे किसानों को तुरंत मिलना शुरू हुआ।
However, Punjab Congress MP Ravneet Bittu and independent MP Beniwal protested loudly as the president spoke about the farm reforms.
MPs टाइम मांग रहे हैं लगातार 2 महीने से प्राइम मिनिस्टर से, राष्ट्रपति जी से। एक बार भी किसी ने टाइम नहीं दिया, जिसके स्टेट के 25 लाख लोग और जिसमें से रोज 3 डेथ्स होती हों, जिनके घर ये जाते हैं वो उनको जवाबदेह हैं, हम नहीं।
While the president called the Red Fort incident on Republic Day unfortunate, opposition parties have demanded the Home Minister's resignation for his failure to stop the raising of other flags.
Opposition कहता है सर, it is central government's responsibility sir to protect the Red Fort.
Opposition को क्या है कि बेनकाब चेहरे हैं, दाग बहुत गहरे हैं, तो कुछ सियासत के जो साजिश के सियासी सूरमा हैं वो एक्सपोज।
The president referred to the Ladakh standoff, but did not mention the word China, keeping in line with the government strategy as over 500,000 troops continue to face off in the adverse weather conditions.
LAC पर द्विपक्षीय संबंधों और समझौताओं को दरकिनार करते हुए शांति भंग करने की कोशिश की गई, लेकिन हमारे सुरक्षा बलों ने न केवल पूरी सजगता, शक्ति और हौसले के साथ इन षड्यंत्रों का मुंह तोड़ जवाब दिया, बल्कि सीमा पर यथास्थिति बदलने के सभी प्रयासों को भी नाकाम किया।
There's a departure this time in the presidential address with no mention about diplomatic relationship with the world, in particular our neighbors, and keeping with the government strategy, refusing to name China in the standoff. With camera persons Manu Nair and Pavan, Sunil Prabhu, NDTV.
50 किसानों को रेड फोर्ट के अंदर किसने जाने दिया और क्यों जाने दिया? क्या होम मिनिस्ट्री का काम नहीं है कि रेड फोर्ट पे इनको नहीं जाना चाहिए, अलाउ करना चाहिए?
The other big headline tonight, the economic survey tabled by the finance minister in both houses of parliament. The prime minister, meanwhile, speaking before parliament, said the budget on Monday will actually be part of 4 to 5 mini budgets, referring to the economic packages his government had announced over the last 1 year. The economic survey today predicted a strong recovery, saying that we would be at 11% growth next year and looking at a contraction of 7.7 this year. The chief economic advisor also said it will be a V-shaped recovery like the Indian cricket team.
As Parliament's budget session opened, a signal from the Prime Minister on what to expect.
2020 एक प्रकार से लगातार मिनी बजट का सिलसिला चलता रहा और इसलिए ये बजट भी उन 4-5 बजट की श्रृंखला में ही देखा जाएगा, ये मुझे पूरा विश्वास है।
The government says in the economic survey tabled today that almost 30 lakh crores have been provided, which is 15% of the GDP. However, the economy is likely to take 2 years to reach and go past the pre-pandemic level. The current year is expected to see a contraction of -7.7%. The next year, a likely growth of 11%, largely because of a low base year, which is the current pandemic year. And the following 2 years will see 6.5 and 7%. The service says this is a conservative estimate with an upside potential, supported by normalization in economic activities as COVID-19 vaccines roll out. Reforms and easing of regulations, push to infrastructural investments, boost to manufacturing, recovery of pent-up demand for services sector, increase in discretionary consumption and pickup in credit. However, the chief economic advisor made a strong pitch for better credit ratings, saying that China and India are the only two nations who, when they have been the 5th largest economy, have been denied AAA ratings.
If you look at the 5th largest economy across time, typically the 5th largest economy has been rated AAA. It's only when emerging giants, India and China actually went to occupy that 5th ranked place that the rating actually became lower than AAA.
The economic survey addresses 2 important issues. One, of course, the stringent lockdown and the 40-day period saying human lives are more important than GDP growth. The second, of course, on the farm laws, saying that the 3 farm reforms are a remedy and not a malady, and clearly the focus should be on ensuring that the market reforms take place, something that farmers are wary of.
With Sunil Prabhu, Osama Shab, NDTV.
Well, moving now to breaking news coming in. India will start its next phase of COVID vaccinations on the 1st of February. That's Monday. Now, remember, today we have crossed 33 lakhs of vaccinations for our healthcare workers. Our target is 3 crores. So we will now start frontline workers next week. They basically include police, municipal workers, sanitation workers, and the vaccination target for that is 2 crore frontline workers. So there will be simultaneous vaccination of healthcare workers and police, paramilitary forces, the army, municipal workers also beginning from Monday. But let's just look at the latest infections, and this is slightly worrying because India has seen the biggest 24-hour jump in cases since the 4th of November. So that is 7,189 cases more than it was the day before. Of course, this week we have had the Republic Day holiday, etc. But we have seen a biggest 24-hour jump since November, and there are almost 19,000 cases today. That's the highest since the 7th of January. So that's a number that will be tracked as well. Great news on vaccines. The Serum Institute of India is now applying for permission for a second vaccine for India trials. This after Novavax. Phase 3 trial figures have shown strong efficacy. That's a US biotech firm. The Novavax vaccine is 89.3% effective in a UK trial. It's highly effective against the new UK strain as well, but worryingly much less effective against the South African strain. In the phase 3 trial, over 15,000 participants between 18 to 84 years of age. And now the Serum Institute hoping for an India trial soon. Besides Novavax, and this could be the real game changer for vaccination, a single dose vaccine. The Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine has said it is 72% effective in the United States and 66% effective overall. The trial was held across 3 continents. The protection against moderate and severe COVID was 66% in Latin America, 57% in South Africa. But Johnson & Johnson has said this is effective against multiple variants, and this would be a great vaccine for India as well, with a single dose vaccine which needs no freezers or anything. Well, let's go across now live to Sunil Prabhu, who's actually in the heart of New Delhi, outside the Israel embassy after a minor blast here. Sunil, what's the latest? Do the police suspect that any terror involvement? Tell us what you know.
Well, Sonia, as I speak, there are a score of people actually still working and looking at that low-intensity blast that took place, which has been a huge embarrassment for security agencies, because less than 1.5 kilometers from here, the beating of retreat was taking place, and this event, this low-intensity blast, though no one was injured, luckily, and of course a few vehicles were damaged, but a score of Delhi police, paramilitary forces and various agencies are looking at what was responsible for it. Just to give you a purview, it's in this vicinity, in this kind of bed, that the low intensity blast took place. How did it take place? What was the motive? Who was responsible? Was it security agencies? What was the forensic evidence? These are all now being investigated. But the fact that it was just in front of the Israeli embassy, opposite the Brazil embassy's residence, as well as Mr. Jindal's residence, is a huge embarrassment for security agencies, as the Prime Minister, the President of India and various other dignitaries were witnessing the beating of retreat. And as you are well aware, Sonia, not only the Home Minister, the Commissioner of Police, the Home Secretary, the intelligence agencies for the last 2-3 days have been reviewing the situation and been saying that they will send extra paramilitary forces. The fact that such an incident has taken place in a high security zone.
No, and it's actually because I know the Delhi police completely stretched with the farmers. Yes, with the farmers' protests as well. We know that the foreign minister also spoke to his counterpart, the Israeli foreign minister as well, to assure all possible help and security for Israelis in India as well. But let's just go across to the other big story. That is the fact that two BJP states have registered FIRs against senior journalists and a Congress MP. Mariam, what's the latest? And also, why do these FIRs seem so coordinated? It's interesting that Delhi police haven't actually, who in a sense should be the most offended, even though these tweets were deleted, have not done anything about this, but two BJP states have now got into the act.
Yeah, so as far as we know, at least 5 FIRs have been registered against journalist Rajdeep Sardesai, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor, the editors of the Caravan and the National Herald. The first one is in Noida, Uttar Pradesh. The second one is in different, four others are filed in different parts of Madhya Pradesh. In Madhya Pradesh, they filed in Bhopal and also other small towns like Multan and Sarni in Betul district and Shivpur and Hosangabad district. In Uttar Pradesh, it's filed in Noida. Some of these FIRs, at least 2, in fact, have very serious charges, including that of sedition. They allege that Sardesai, Tharoor and others had spread fake and misleading information that the farmer had been allegedly shot by the police. This is all pertaining to the death of a farmer during the farmer tractor rally that took place on Republic Day. All these people had in fact tweeted about the farmer's death, but Mr. Sardesai, Mr. Tharoor, the National Herald have all deleted those tweets since then. Despite this, multiple FIRs have been filed against them in Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Since the FIRs have been filed, multiple press bodies like the Editors Guild and the Press Club of India have condemned the move and asked that the FIRs be withdrawn. The Indian Women's Press Corps has also condemned the FIRs, which names their founding president, Mrinal Pandey of National Herald. However, Sonia, what is more concerning is that when you look closer at the FIRs, there's a pattern that emerges. NDTV has accessed and analyzed 3 of these 5 FIRs and found them to be near identical of each other. The FIR in Uttar Pradesh is of course in Hindi, while the others in Madhya Pradesh are in, the 2 in Madhya Pradesh are in English. But even then, large parts of the FIR seem to be verbatim the same, save for a few lines and typos here and there. Entire paragraphs have been reproduced across the 3 FIRs filed in 2 different states.
Absolutely. So you're saying small towns have come. I mean, there's a pattern that is emerging. Small towns FIRs are being filed. So adding to the process which these journalists have to go through, and that the FIRs are all the same. So surely the person in a small town in Madhya Pradesh hasn't consulted the person in Noida and filed the FIR. So it's clearly a larger battle here that we are seeing with 2 BJP states filing FIRs against senior journalists there. No wonder all the media organizations are outraged over what we see as an attack on the freedom of expression and speech guaranteed in our constitution. Meanwhile, comedian Kunal Kamra also had a strong defense on the contempt charges he's currently facing, that he committed contempt of the Supreme Court. In his reply, which is actually going viral, he has said, "I will not apologize because no defense is needed for jokes. Jokes are based on a comedian's perspective. They're not reality and they don't claim to be so. The court can ignore the jokes like our political leaders ignore critics. The Supreme Court should trust the public not to form opinions on the basis of jokes. The public's faith in the judiciary is founded on the institution's own actions." He goes on to say that it's being offended now seems like a fundamental right, and that the arrest of comedians like Munawar Farooqi is an assault on freedom of speech. He also says that he will not comment on whatever judgment the Supreme Court makes because that would be contempt, but he meant no contempt in his earlier jokes. The Supreme Court has now adjourned the case for 2 weeks.